A unit of Health and Human Services recently made awards to 4 academic and industry teams to do what seemed like miracles, enabling the blind to see. The awardees will work on technology to enable transplantation of the human eye. For details, from the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, Program Manager Cal Roberts. Dr. Roberts, good to have you with us.
Good. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
And this sounds like maybe the last frontier in transplantation. Tell us more about what it is you're trying to accomplish here.
Well, we transplant hearts, we transplant lungs, we transplant livers, we transplant kidneys, we transplant skin, we transfuse blood. Why don't we transfuse eyes? Why don't we transplant eyes? And the reason why we don't transplant eyes is because eyes are nothing more than the anterior extension of your brain. And so that what we would need to do in order to be able to successfully transplant eyes is very similar to what we would need to do in order to transplant other parts of the central nervous system. So what we have to learn how to do is how to reconnect nerves. So how to take a nerve from one person, transplant it into another person so that the signal that's coming through that nerve can get received by the recipient, and the brain can process that information for what we call sight.
Sure. And is there some characteristic of optical nerves that are different from other nerves in the body?
So that's the beauty, that the message as carried by my eyes is exactly the same as would be carried by your eyes. So there's a universal language that eyes use to speak to the brain. And so that's why I believe that this is possible, that if we can get the nerves from the donor to send a signal to the recipient brain, then I'm very confident with the concept that the recipient is going to be able to see.
And these contract awards that you recently issued, 3 of them are academics and 1 looks like a corporate recipient. What are the particular technologies, or what is it you expect them to do here?
We've broken down this whole program into 3 technical areas. And so the first technical area is harvesting the donors, because that an eye can only survive for minutes after the blood supply stops. And so then we're going to have to figure out how are we going to harvest these donors at the same time, say, as they're taking out the hearts or the livers or the lungs for other purposes. How are we going to be able to harvest these eyes and keep them alive and viable for as long as it takes until they're able to have the surgery, which could be as long as 24 hours. The second technical area is the one that we've talked about already, which is how are you going to reconnect the nerves so that the signal from the donor gets received by the recipient and therefore interpreted as sight. And then the third technical area is the actual surgery. And so how are you going to connect not just the nerves, but the muscles and the blood vessels? And then how are you going to keep these eyes from rejecting? Because like other organs, these eyes could reject. And how are you going to know that this is actually working? Because the restoration of sight is not going to be days or weeks, it's going to take months. And during that period of time, how are you going to know how this is healing? So we're going to have to develop new techniques to evaluate and watch at a cellular level how this is healing. So these first 4 contracts that we have already announced, 2 of them, the ones to University of Colorado and the one to Stanford, is going to look at all 3 of these technical areas and putting together the whole picture. But the other 2, the one to the Bascom Palmer Eye Institute and the one to InGel, and what they're going to look is just parts of it. So the Bascom Palmer team out of the University of Miami, they're going to look at the harvesting problem and keeping these eyes alive. And the InGel group, they're going to look at how you can actually create scaffolding or other ways to promote nerve growth so that the nerves learn how to grow and grow in the right direction and grow properly.
We're speaking with Dr. Cal Roberts. He's a program manager for Health Sciences Futures at the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health. And just a detailed question, if a person's blindness is the result of the optical nerve itself and not, say, something in the eyeball, then a spin-off benefit could be repair of someone's optical nerves with their eyes in their head already.
So understanding how nerves work and how nerves repair is truly a secondary benefit, because we want to learn from Thea not just the simple idea or the complicated idea of how you would transplant an eye, but actually understand better how it is that nerves grow, how nerves repair, and consequently come up with new therapies that can have broader applications in this whole area of nerve repair and regeneration, even broader than just what we're trying to do with transplanting eyes.
Sure, yeah, like standing up again for people that might have a spinal injury, I think isn't that one of the holy grails of nerve research?
Absolutely, because while vision may be different than feeling or walking, the nerves are the same. And so if you can get the nerves to repair, then the applicability is so broad. And those of us who work in eyes and work in vision, what we love about our area is that we are the one part of the central nervous system that is truly at the surface. And so only in your eyes can you actually look at a part of your brain. And so you don't need a machine or an X-ray or an MRI or something in order to see what you're doing. You can actually look at a part of your brain. That's why those of us who do vision research, we love working on eyes, because the applicability of what we learn from the eyes is so wide and so broad, and there's so many other ways that information can be used.
And how do you or ARPA-H envision this moving from research to testing? How on earth would you possibly test a thing like this if some of the technologies seem to gel together?
We will start out with small animals and being able to transplant eyes in small animals. When that's successful, we'll go to larger animals, and only when we have shown that we can effectively transplant an eye in a large animal and restore sight, only then would we even consider possibly going to humans.
And there have been pig hearts, I think, bovine hearts put in people and different things. We're only talking about human to human in this case.
In this case, we're only talking about humans to humans, but we are talking about pigs to pigs. And so that's how we're going to learn how to do this.
All right. And tell us more about your background. You're an ocular type of guy to begin with. How did you come to this particular really esoteric work here?
Yeah, so I'm an eye surgeon, and I've spent my whole career transplanting parts of the eye, in most cases the cornea. And a lot of people have heard of a cornea transplant. And what the cornea transplant is just taking a very small part of the eye, the front clear window that is in front of the colored part of your eye. And so just taking that cornea and transplanting corneas. And I have to tell you that through my career of doing this, patients have always said to me, Doc, why are you just transplanting my cornea? Why just give me a new eye? And then you have to explain to the person, well, the reason why I can't give you a new eye is because you have to reconnect the nerves and things like that, and no one knows how to be able to do this. And when the opportunity came at ARPA-H to do something that's really hard, but something that could be really exciting with broad implication, I ran at this opportunity to be able to now take what I've learned through many years of doing cornea transplants and now be able to look at this much bigger issue of how you could transplant not just part of the eye, but transplant the whole eye.
Question on some of the physics here. When you say correct cross-eyedness, the doctor disconnects the muscles that control the eye movement and reconnects them. That's mechanical, almost like reattaching an ACL or something in the knee. When you get nerves to talk to one another again, that sounds like something more molecular and less surgical. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So both, because what you actually do, you have to physically get the nerves to grow and to reconnect. But there's this messaging. And how does this messaging occur? The messaging occurs is the use of transmitters and functional chemicals that within nerves that make them work and make them function. So yes, there is the physical of getting one end of the nerve to the other end, and then it's also the growth